We are Godrej. That's us in ruby, green, and blue. And this is a story of the little things we do. It started with a little thing we made to protect you and your things. Over 100 years on, we're still doing the same, except it now has wings. Little things that'll take you places you can't get to on an airplane. And little things that circle the earth and tell our farmers when it'll rain. Little things that keep our animal friends hale and hearty. And little things that keep kids healthy and naughty. Little things that keep not just our homes, but even medicines and vaccines cool. And little things that rinse away dirt and allergens, so your little ones don't miss a day of school. Little things that make washing hands so much fun. And some that make your cars and homes smell like spring. Little things that keep diseases away. And some that make your hair shine and swing. Little things that help you make things, big, small, and everything in between. And little things that help carry those things to places far and even unseen. Little things, or should we say little spaces, where you live, work, and play. And little things you keep in those spaces to sit, sleep, or just put things away. Locks, soaps, buildings, and missiles. Well, there are quite a few. These are some of the little things we do.
Hello and hi. Welcome to all. This is Subramani, who's in charge of commodities and agribusiness vertical at the Hindu Business Line. Welcome all to the Godrej Agrovet Business Line post-pandemic outlook for the poultry sector. The Indian poultry sector is one that has been witnessing a double-digit growth for nearly a decade now. Changing food habits and preferences, particularly for chicken, are one of the reasons why India are the reasons why that have been behind this uh, behind this consumption pattern and the growing behind the growth of the poultry sector. This has resulted in India being one of the top producers of eggs and broilers in the world. A study pegs the size of egg and broiler market in the country last year at rupees 2 lakh crore. India exported 2.55 lakh tons of poultry product valued at rupees 435 crore last fiscal. No doubt, the advent of novel coronavirus in March last year has affected the global economy. The poultry sector can be no exception, but the sector has gone through a tough time that no other sector has undergone. First, the COVID outbreak, which affected consumption. More regrettably, the sector had to face some adverse publicity by rumor mongers. It took a while, but the sector recovered. Even as it was on its path of recovery, with the economy opening up slowly, incidences of avian influenza, avian influenza during November set the sector back again. Yet again, the players in the sector had to slog and to go through a hard grind. When they again began to recover, the second COVID wave came as a rude shock. In addition, raw material costs began to soar. Thus, a promising sector has gone through a turbulent time. What sort of problem have they faced? What sort of problems has the sector overcome? How they have overcome these, the challenges faced, and the way forward. These are going to be what we are going to discuss at this webinar today. We take immense pleasure in welcoming Mr. Balram Yadav, Managing Director, Godrej Agrovet, and Dr. Tarun Bajaj, Director, APIDA. We are extremely thankful to Dr. Bajaj for joining us at a short notice, since APIDA chairman, who was to deliver, Dr. Angam Mathu, who had to deliver the keynote address, had to urgently attend a commerce ministry meeting. We also welcome Mr. Suresh Chitturi, Vice Chairman and MD Srinivasa Farms, Mr. Prashant Watkar, CEO Godrej Tyson Foods, and Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, veteran journalist. And a hearty welcome to all the attendees. Mr. Mr. Balram Yadav, Managing Director, Godrej Agrovet, will flag off the webinar. He heads one of India's foremost diversified agribusiness companies. He also serves as Managing Director of Godrej Tyson Foods Limited. In addition, he is Director of numerous firms, including ACI Godrej Agrovet Private Limited, Bangladesh, Creamline Dairy Products Limited, Hyderabad, Aztec Life Sciences Life Limited, and Godrej Maxim Milk, Mumbai. He's the man who launched Real Good Chicken and Yummies as the leading processed poultry brand in India, the one who took Godrej Agrovet public. It's over to Mr. Yadav for his special address.
Good afternoon. Can I? Good afternoon, my esteemed colleagues, panelists, and dear friends. I'm extremely glad to speak at this occasion. The reason is because the topic I love, animal agriculture, has been my life for the last 30 years, and specifically poultry, where I have spent tremendous amount of time, and I understand that industry almost in 35, 40 countries which I have visited. I must tell you that animal agriculture, particularly, let me talk about animal agriculture first, has done really well in this country, in spite of all kinds of neglect by the governments and it's a step motherly treatment by the financial sector. But we have zoomed past and we have done very well. I'll give you some data of how we have performed in the last 2 decades. From 2000 to 2020, the population of this country has grown by only 30%. The food grain production only 56%. Vegetables have doubled to by about 104% growth. Milk 144%. Fish 133%. Eggs 208%. Chicken over 500%. So on the lighter side, I just want to tell people that the lesser the government's involvement, the better has been growth of that sector. And I must say that overall GDP growth, which has grown 3.4% from 2011 to 2020, crops have contributed only 1%, livestock 7.4%, and aqua 8%. 66% of delta GDP growth for last 10 years has been contributed by the animal agriculture sector. So this has been the contribution of this sector in trying to bring rural prosperity and doing our bit for doubling farmer income. And I must also say that today animal agriculture GDP is about 33% of total agri GDP, which is close to about 30 lakh crores in nominal terms. We are at about 10 lakh crores. But in next 10 years, we will see that when we reach something like 40 lakh crores, most of the growth will come from the animal agriculture sector. Now, I must also say that we contribute greatly to the rural income also, if you include milk and other animal agriculture like goats, etc. We over about 10 crore families in this country are partially and fully dependent on this sector. So this is the importance of the sector in our country. Today, at wholesale prices, Mr. Subramani said that it is about 2 lakh crores, that is the retail number. But at wholesale prices, we produce about 70,000 crore worth of chicken, which is about 4.5 million metric ton of poultry meat. And we produce about 130 to 140 billion eggs, which is about 60,000 crores in terms of turnover. and we are the top 5 producers in the world. There's still a lot of opportunity, and I'm ready to bet with anybody that this sector, come pandemic, come earthquake, come different governments, will continue to grow because our per capita consumption are still very low. We believe that in next 10 years, I think the poultry production will double, egg production will at least become 1.5 times what it is. So that is the kind of opportunity we are staring at. Now, this industry has really prospered on the sheer grit and determination of industry players and our farmers, who have taken everything in stride, ups and downs, but still progress. And I must tell you that people talk about blood and sweat, but I have been in this industry for the last 30 years, and I have seen what real blood and sweat people, all stakeholders in this industry have put. I must tell you that this industry has been fraught with challenges for times immemorial. We live with RM price volatility. We live with diseases, and I must say that some of the diseases are our own creation, because on a conservative side also we lose about 15 to 20,000 crores because of avian influenza every year, not because of H1N5, but because of the low pathogenic avian influenza, which causes morbidity and causes a lot of efficiency loss in poultry. But still, our policymakers turn their head and say that vaccine is not needed. I'll just give you the example of Bangladesh, where this problem came about 10 years ago and they allowed the import of vaccines. And that country has been free of avian influenza for last 7-8 years, and they have registered a growth of about 15% CAGR in their chicken production in last 10 years. So this is what I would say is possible if you solve the vaccine problem. Then poor human capital, because we are not involved, we are not automated, so we don't need very high quality manpower, even if the automation is expensive but very, very economical. I think this is one of the things we suffer with. Then negligible value addition. Now, I must tell you that only about 5% of the industry, close to about 6,000, 8,000 crores is value added, and which insulates us from all the vagaries of costs, diseases, etc. But that initiative and that focus is almost lacking in this industry. So these are a few things which are challenges. But I must come back to the pandemic, and pandemic is an eye-opener for this industry. I must tell you, this industry's biggest problem is now the image. Anytime there is a virus which comes from anywhere in anything, poultry is to be blamed. And we have seen it happening in last 15 months. We had the first pandemic. Even before the pandemic started in India, we started losing money. Worst months in my professional life were February and March last year, when pandemic had not hit India, but it had hit China and some other countries. But poultry prices had crashed to 4, 5, 6 rupees a kilo. And the industry within about 10 to 12 weeks suffered a loss of about 20,000 crores. We recovered only to go down again because of avian influenza. Then we recovered only to go down again because of the second pandemic, second wave of COVID. So I think this has been the big story for us, and that has left all of us, farmers and stakeholders, this industry, bruised financially, and also loss of confidence in what we are doing. I think we need to sort this out as a massive scale, and I'll touch upon that later. Loss of money was also coupled with loss of jobs, because several poultry farms were closed where poorest of poor people work, and they were out of their livelihoods for several months together. Now, all bad news also come with little bit of good news. I think some of the things which we see, even though it is a silver lining, but I must point that out, is that value addition got a boost. And that is what is also should also be the strategy of this industry. While plain vanilla chicken sales tanked and the value loss was there, but the value-added products in chicken skyrocketed. You just cannot imagine how much growth the industry has seen in value-added products, particularly heat and eat products. And I can talk about Godrej, that we are at 2x of what we were in FY20 right now. And that is the kind of thumbs up the consumer gave us when we did value addition and we did some processing And we converted basically chicken into food. And this is the confidence which the consumer had. They said, we will not have pure plain vanilla raw chicken, but we are okay having value-added heat and eat products which have been processed, cooked hygienically, and have undergone some kind of a quality testing. So this is one of the indicators of this pandemic, and this is also illuminating the path for future. The other good thing was that I never thought that people will call for raw meat home, but direct to home got a very big boost. And I think startups like Licious and all were recording growths of 10-12% per month in their sales. And that is very good thing, because unless and until people try, how will they get confident that it is possible to get non-vegetarian products of very high quality at home? They need not go to the dirty shop to check the chicken, or to the fish or the smelly fish market to check the fish themselves. So it can be possible. They can trust other people to deliver that. And I think that is one of the things which opened up because of the pandemic. So my sense is these platforms will never deliver live chicken or slaughter it in the house. They will always be dependent on processed chicken from very good sources. And I'm very sure that this will help in future in the processing industry. The third thing I must say is that home delivery, Swiggy's and Zomato's, and I'm so glad that Zomato got a thumbs up from the investors also, because that is the future. Now, one of the best things about our industry is that 50% of chicken consumption is out of home consumption. And out of home consumption can become in-home consumption through these platforms like Swiggy and Zomato, because they can bring the restaurant to your house. And I think this is one big change which will give some kind of a fillip to this industry. My view is that Zomato's and Swiggy's will go for cloud kitchens, which they've been talking about, and people like us will be making semi-cooked food and semi-cooked products for them to be converted into food and delivered in time to come. So our business models are likely to change in next 3 to 5 years. From poultry processors, we might become further value-added processors and do almost 80 and 90% of the cooking and value addition before giving it to these platforms for further value addition and delivery to customers. And I'm also very glad that there is a rejuvenated thinking of the consumer of health, wellness, etc. I think there will be that consciousness will also spread to food. So I think all these pointers point to some kind of improvement in time to come. I think we have discussed it a lot, and I don't mind discussing it again and again, because we need to reiterate to the industry players again and again that one of the things which we have to fight very strongly is image. Unfortunately, we have made very feeble efforts. The industry is 1,30,000 crore at wholesale level. That is what I count, because that is the NRV we get. And at 1,30,000 crores, with so much of employment we generate, we are part of all celebration. But unfortunately, we have such a poor image that any virus comes, we are the first ones to be punished. So I can definitely say, and a lot of panelists who are in chicken business will agree, that we are one of the most efficient producer of chicken in the world. Our cost of production and the efficiencies are at par with the global giants. And I can say that with confidence, because we are partners with Tyson, which is the largest animal protein company in the world. But we have to do a lot of work at the consumer level. We have to gain their confidence by showing them what they do, by showing them the kind of quality procedures we follow, the biosecurity we follow, and why every time there is a virus, why we should not be blamed. It is a long haul. It cannot be achieved only by few. It has to be an industry-wide kind of a mission. It has to be done PR, less of advertising and more PR, and more intelligent PR, which gives a lot of credibility. And I think that is one thing which we have to do. I think social media is one area which we should use very, very effectively. The other thing is that I think gone are the days that we can continue with the way we are continuing in past. I think superior product offering at all levels of value addition is one of the must for any industry to become a vibrant food industry. So we have to transit from a chicken industry to food industry, and chicken should go down and value-added food should come up in this industry. It is a long haul, but I'm saying that this consumption will keep on increasing. So if we start now, I'm sure that in 5 to 10 years' time, we will change. With the change of generation, also a lot of adoption will also become easy. These are the only ways we can achieve sustainable, profitable growth. But I must also, since Mr. Bajaj is there from APIDA, I must also say that I think Ministry of Commerce has to take chicken industry and poultry industry under their wing. The kind of magic you have done through MPDA for shrimp, can you imagine that you have made us one of the largest exporter of shrimp, even though it is not a native to us. 99% of shrimp we produce is exported. And that is the kind of initiative we need in poultry. We are very efficient producers. Our cost of production is very low. And I think the GCC countries import $4 billion of chicken, who are just 2.5 hours away from us, isn't it? A sustained effort. They get chicken from Brazil, from Argentina, and from US, but they don't take our chicken. I think that's a pity. We put fresh beef, and you know that in Dubai, every day, several times a day, we can do that with poultry also. But I think the effort will have to be made by APIDA, and I would love to see something in Commerce Ministry which does something for a very aggressive promotion of poultry products in the world. One of the greatest service you will do for this industry, because what is our lean period, which is July, August to Shravan, Navratri, etc., up to November, is the peak period in those countries. So this is the thing. I think we will have a very symbiotic, synergistic relationship. I am very glad to speak at this. I speak my mind all the time. I use less brain and more heart when I talk about this industry. I am very passionate about it. 31 glorious years of my life I have dedicated to it. I'm extremely happy that Hindu Business Line is organizing this webinar and creating awareness about our issues, our problems, and how pandemic has affected us. And I wish you all the best, and I'll be very glad and eagerly listening to all the other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yadav. That has been very enlightening. You have opened your heart, and you have also opened our minds to whatever you have said. It's been very enlightening. Now, Dr. Tarun Bajaj is Director APIDA. He takes care of processed food, animal products, quality, GI products divisions. He has over 25 years of experience in handling agriculture and processed food exports from India. This includes developing supply chain, quality assurance, market promotion abroad, and market access issues. Over to Dr. Bajaj.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subramani. Thank you very much. In fact, Mr. Balram Singh Jakhar has set a very right tone of this today's program. And it is very rightly said, India has a vast resource of poultry population, which is very essential for especially the rural economy. It is also important from the food security point of view and also the nutritional security point of view, because this is probably the easiest and the cheapest source of protein, which is an essential nutrient. We have seen tremendous growth, as rightly said, in the last 4 decades. And there has been a manifold growth in that, from unscientific farming to commercial production and also technological interventions, state-of-art interventions. We have seen it. We are number 3 as far as production is concerned in the eggs, number 5 in chicken meat. And the major importing countries are, of course, Germany, France, UK, Netherlands, and China. And 35% of the total imports of the world is taken care by these 5 countries. We are not having much presence in there. When we see our own exports, then in 18-19, it was 687 crores. 19-20, it is 574 crores. And in 2021, it was 435 crores. Last year, we saw a decrease of 24%. So this is a pandemic effect, and other effects, of course, we'll be discussing. But we saw tremendous reduction in the exports. 24% is a major reduction. While we saw increase in all other food products, there has been an increase, marine and other products, but this sector, there has been a decrease, and we saw a 24% decrease, which is quite significant. But the saving grace is that now when we see the quick estimates of April and May, which are available, it was 73 crores last year in April, May, and it is 74 crores this year. So that means we can say the reduction is contained. I'm not saying we are increased. It is premature to say, because we need to analyze the trends which we will be seeing in the over a period of time. But it appears that the reduction is contained. So likely to have not more reduction as it was there in the last year. We, of course, the major importing countries as far as India is concerned is Oman. Oman, almost 25 to 25% is Oman. They take eggs from India, Maldives, Indonesia, Vietnam, Russia. These are the major, of course, importing countries we are exporting. And the products which are going are egg powder, egg yolk, hatching eggs, table eggs, broilers, day-old chicks, and chicken meat. Yes, we admit there has been effect on the poultry sector, and the major, of course, was pandemic, because we know last year the rumors, the myths, and so many things were attached in the pandemic, and the logistics issues, severe logistics issues affected, and this demand also decreased, and this affected our sector, poultry sector, significantly. Then it was bird flu, which got affected. Many countries, they slapped temporary bans because of the bird flu. Could not continue this bird flu. Last year, there was a pandemic, and subsequent was a bird flu. And third, of course, the major factor was increase in the feed cost. Soybean and corn cost has been very high. Of course, now we feel the new notification, there may be some relief. But yes, this has affected to a significant extent our sector. What we need to do is that we need to address these issues. I was hearing to Mr. Balram, he very rightly said we need to do something very vigorously for this sector. The first and foremost important thing is that we need to address the issue of disease control. Bird flu is there, but GCC countries have also started asking Newcastle disease free. Of course, last time when we had a video conference, they asked, okay, if you can give a certificate that 25-kilometer radius, there is no Newcastle disease. We are in touch with the state governments. If they can give this certificate, or maybe now we will be coming back to the GCC countries. Look, we can give you certificate that the compartments are free from Newcastle disease. This is an also important aspect. Also, we need to work out on the promotion strategy so that we are able to reach to the every corner of the world with our products. And Brazil, which is I think number one, 18.6% share, we are holding 48th rank in the world, 0.09% hardly. We need to take as much portion as possible. We have the capacity, as rightly said, we have the capacity and we can do it. We hopeful that in the coming times, this sector will show a positive results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bajaj. Now we are coming to the business session of the webinar. As said at the start of the session, the poultry sector has really gone through a very tough time since March last year. I'll now open the floor to the panelists. After that, they will take questions from the attendees. I think some of you can, I think a couple of them have started sending their questions. Please message your questions, but please also provide your name and designation because I think people need to know what sort of, how correct you are or what are the issues that are bothering you or troubling you. We will try and take as many questions as possible. And also you tell us if you want any particular panelist to address the question they have put up. Now, let me give a brief introduction to all the three panelists. First, Mr. Suresh Chitturi. He is the Vice Chairman and MD of Srinivasa Farms, a dominant force in Indian poultry industry. He is recognized as one of the builders of the Indian poultry industry in the last 50 years. Chitturu's work has been recognized at the global level, and he is engaged in advocacy for the poultry industry internationally as the chairman of the International Egg Commission. He is the first Asian to hold this position in the history of the institution. Mr. Prashant Vatekar is our next panelist. He is the CEO of Godrej Tyson Foods, a joint venture with Tyson Foods USA. He has rich experience in leading consumer-facing businesses in personal care and food spaces, both in India and abroad. Prashant had successful stints in HIL Limited and Britannia Industries Limited earlier. And our third panelist is Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, senior journalist, policy commentator, and agribusiness specialist. He speaks regularly at national and international conferences on a range of topics, including food, nutrition, security, technology infusion in agriculture, sustainability, trade investments. He also advises various bodies ranging from SEBI to Chambers of Commerce. Now, getting out of the business. First, we would want to know the exact impact on the poultry sector due to the COVID pandemic, the subsequent avian influenza, and the second wave of COVID. What are the problems the poultry sector had to face? Was the sector prepared to face these problems? At least the second time, was it adequately prepared? Going forward, what are the risks the sector faces? I would ask Mr. Chituri to respond to this first. Over to you, Mr. Chituri.
I think, like Balram was sharing, thank you first, Hindu Business Line and Godrej for having me on this panel and on this webinar. I think first and foremost is like Balram was saying, how do you deal with a problem you don't have, right? I mean, it's some WhatsApp forwards and news and all that started flying around and people stopped eating. And, it was a disaster. And, I was literally born when the industry kind of started, and when myself, Venki started, whatever it is. And we have seen a lot of crises, but last year, March, April was like, and I'm generally a very positive person, but that was one time I had to doubt if my positivity at any point now. Losing 80% cash every day was not, and for like, not like a week or 2 days, right? And then the whole point is, what is the problem? What did we do wrong? What do we deal with? And then being the chair of IEC, I know everybody else, everywhere else in the world, eggs were flying off the shelf. Nobody had enough eggs. UK didn't have enough eggs. Australia didn't have enough eggs. After, Australia, especially for some reason, they wanted toilet paper first and number 2 was eggs. But everywhere else in the world, it was eggs which were flying off the shelf. India was the only country in the world where we had this issue. And I think it was a new experience. We learned from this. I don't know how you prepare for something like that. But at some end, if you look at it, last year was also, on some balance, was a pretty good year. We went through real tough situations. But unfortunately, I think it's the small people who got caught out. The small people, the small farmers especially, were completely caught out, and many people lost their livelihoods, and for something that they've built for decades. But the big people who were around, I think we grew. I think that's the sad part of what happened, and I think somewhere we need to see how can the policy making and all that protect that in future. Because as I said, we have seen people who started with 500 birds go to 6 million birds. That's what we have done, helped build this industry, and to now see small guys go out was not, I think, this thing. For the feed costs over the next 6 to 12 months, Subramania, I think, and maybe Mr. Chandrasekharan can comment on that. I think our government needs to seriously look at what is our needs in 2025, 2030, 2035, and 2040. I think that's where the problem is. Our numbers are completely, and I wouldn't, it's not about this. I think the system has been broken for very long, and it's time we fix that. I think they have crazy numbers coming out of that. A few months back, they were telling us, we have more. I mean, Niti Aayog just, I think, last month was talking about diverting corn to ethanol production. And good, I have no problem with that. But then we don't have enough corn. Where the hell are you going to divert it from? And then what are we going to feed our chickens and cows and all that, right? And now that's a brilliant opportunity for us, because Brazil and US are producing 100 million tons of corn. We are at 22, 23. Now, if you want agriculture and farmers to be taken care of, fantastic. Just look at the opportunity there. So the point is, how will we get to 50 million tons of corn in the next 15 years? I think these are things that we need to take to government, and we have to seriously look at these things. Thank you. I think, if there's anything else, there's a lot of questions I can answer, but I'll come back.
Now, I would request Mr. Prashant Watkar to express his views. Mr. Watkar?
Prashant, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry. So thank you, Hindu Business Line, for inviting me for this discussion. I think a lot has been talked about by Mr. Yadav and Mr. Chituri on the cost of bird and the crisis, how it happened, and what was the impact on the entire industry. Few things that stick out to me coming more from the consumer-facing side. I think the first foremost, in a way, Mr. Yadav talked about it, is chicken consumption in India fundamentally is more discretionary in nature. And I remember when it was the month of March 2020, I was in the market visiting a retail outlet which sells chicken. And that lady herself used to consume quite a lot of chicken regularly. And she said that, sir, abhi ye sab news aa raha hai. I said, you know it, you have been doing in this business for so long. So what are you doing personally? She said, I have stopped cooking chicken at home. And I said, why? She said, sir, kya farak padta hai if for a month or two I don't feed my kids with chicken? It's always there. I can always, So that is one very fundamental thing where at a consumer end, it has to be a significantly higher level of confidence where right from it is healthy, it is a great source of protein. It's not only just a delicious form of special occasion consumption, but it's a regular consumption. It's a need of the hour, etc., etc. And for that, everything has to come together, which means the cost of chicken has to be more manageable. We can export, yes. If I'm not wrong, whatever exports we do to Oman probably are not as profitable as what we sell in India, primarily because our bird production cost is much higher because our input cost is higher, even though our efficiencies are great. So right from there to a more cost-effective production, supply chain, and consumer confidence building. That's very critical. What has happened in this pandemic, the way I've seen is, yes, there is a significantly higher degree of pull from the consumer side for protein, because I think at a grassroots level, all the medical practitioners, doctors talked about immunity building is critical, protein source is very critical, and chicken is the fantastic, chicken or egg are the fantastic sources of this thing. So as a result, there is a tailwind. Once the rumors subsided, there was a tailwind which the industry experienced. Along with that, as Mr. Yadav mentioned, what we have experienced is anything which was value added so far was not going as fast. But this was a time where they got a very significant boost. And I am seeing a home delivery mechanism by these e-commerce guys also as a value addition, not necessarily on the product format, but at least in a service format. And that got an acceptance, that was seen as a value, genuinely value addition, and people started accepting these formats. There was a tremendous growth in these segments. Now, as an industry, I think we all need to see as to how do we build on this. It's still a very, very small portion, tiny portion of the entire industry, but this is probably giving us the right green shoot start, and we need to build on it. I'm sure the way the industry is thinking, if we can continue to think hard, we should be able to build and create a much stronger proposition with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkar. That was enlightening. Now, I would request Mr. G. Chandrasekhar to give his viewpoint.
Thanks, MRS. Obviously, I would divide your question into two parts. The immediate impact post pandemic, and of course, medium to long term. what is likely to happen and what should be happening. I have been associated with this industry and the top industry players for probably 15 or 20 years. I track what happens, what's happening in this industry. Of course, I must apologize. I don't contribute to the top line and bottom line of this industry. I don't eat chicken. I don't eat meat. But I know Balram is smiling. But मैं क्या करूँ? That's the way we've been brought up. Okay, all right. Therefore, but my sympathies are with the industry. The potential of the industry has no doubt whatsoever in my mind. That's number one. Number two, this pandemic and the crisis that followed the pandemic makes out a very strong case to build resilience in the industry. How would you build resilience in the industry is a very, very big question. It is not just for the poultry industry, across industries. In the last 15 to 18 months, we have seen many of the industries have been affected. There's no doubt at all. Therefore, we need to start thinking about how do we build resilience in this industry. That's one. It's a big thought, but it'll require a whole day of discussion, most likely. We've also been actually talking about climate smart agriculture. The government of India has a number of projects on climate smart agriculture. But now I think this industry in particular should also start looking at crisis smart agriculture. How do we build systems in place? How do we have a very strong, robust supply chain that will ensure that any adverse impact of the crisis is actually minimized? And therefore, we need crisis smart agriculture, I think, from a medium to long-term perspective. I would also want to certainly mention, I am in touch with a large number of top industry players. They're all in touch with me. I speak to them, I chat with them. My sense is that yes, there was certainly a crisis almost the whole of 2020 in terms of demand destruction. But my understanding is that demand revival started probably towards the last quarter of 2020. And then again, there was a short setback in this year, but demand is now currently at very close to the pre-COVID level. And there is great hope that in the last quarter of this year and from 2022 onwards, I think demand will revive and certainly even exceed the pre-COVID level. So that's the message, that's the information that I'm getting from top industry players. Number one. But looking at the medium to long term. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago, I addressed a young CEO forum of the poultry industry. There were 40 or 50 young CEOs, and I looked at the next 10 or 15 years, how the growth is going to pan out. And therefore, we need, the industry has to decide today where it wants to be by 2030. And when it wants to be at a particular point at 2030, what is required to be done today to reach that objective or that aim or that milestone. And therefore, my sense is the industry needs to work today. What kind of population of layers and broilers that the industry would need year on year over the next 10 years, say until 2030. What will be the feed need for that population of livestock? What kind of vaccines would be required? Do we have enough processing capacity, particularly for producing value-added products? What kind of investment do we need? What kind of skills are required? I think that an exercise leading to a certain target by 2030 is what is required. I remember, give me a minute more, 2017 probably, or 2016 or 17, the Niti Aayog came up with certain projections. And quite surprisingly, those projections have worked quite well, barring, of course, last year, which was completely unforeseen and unforeseeable demand situation. Therefore, the projections of the Niti Aayog suggest to me that by 2023, that is 2 years from now, egg production is likely to reach 136 billion, which in 2020 was 114 billion. The projection made 6 years ago was that by 2023, it should be 136 billion. On current reckoning, it looks a little ambitious given the kind of issues that we have faced. Same with meat, poultry meat, which was in 2020, 4.3 million tons, projected to reach by 2023, 6.2 million tons. And maybe it could fall short, but very, very substantially, I think these targets will be met. But going forward, 2030, my request, my suggestion to senior leaders like Balram would be that we need to prepare a roadmap and look at investment, look at skills, look at the number of birds we need, vaccines, feed requirement, etc. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's quite insightful, Rahman. Now we'll go to another issue that's been really troubling the sector. Over the last 6 to 8 months, the poultry sector has been under stress due to increased feed costs. Soya meal prices have doubled, edible oil prices have also shot up, and then corn prices have also increased. Now, we would like to know what sort of pressure that the poultry sector had to face in view of the rise in cost, and how has it hurt the small players badly, because we have heard stories of how some of the small players had to really shut down. And what's the outlook for the feed costs over the next 6 to 12 months? I would request Mr. Chitturi to start, for his views. Mr. Chitturi.
Sorry. It's like the situation is like, yeah, corn has gone. Corn not so much this year, but right now it's started its movement upwards. But soya has gone from something like 37,000 to more than ₹1 lakh. This is like completely unimagined number, right? I mean, 45, 50, maybe, was itself going to be crazy number, but to ₹1 lakh. And yeah, I mean, now I think just now we got this thing, a letter from government saying that, we can import. I think this is one of the things we need to work with government, or somewhere the reaction time needs to be faster. And number of people who are lost in the last 2 months is crazy. And I myself was struggling to get any seed, soya seed, for our plant 15 days back. Now we managed a little bit, but now we don't know. So, but then I think we are not able to sell outside. I mean, I have a soya processing plant, but I'm not planning to sell to anybody right now. I'm only worried about feeding my own chickens. And imagine the situation for small guys, right? I mean, chicken production cost a few months back was probably 80 rupees, 85 rupees, is now 100 plus rupees. And the live bird price right now in Hyderabad is maybe 90 rupees. And then this has been going on for last 2-3 months, and the losses have been severe because June, the price was actually something like 60 rupees. It was selling at a production cost of 95, selling at 60 rupees. Especially the small people, you can imagine what's happening. The egg side of the business was quite good till last week. The egg consumption, Mr. Chandrasekharan, and you might be interested. The numbers I saw and is that the egg consumption increased by 8 eggs in the last 2 years. So that's like phenomenal number, right? Something from from 73, I think they're now claiming it is 81. So that should make us the number 2 egg producer in the world, if I'm not wrong. I mean, I should know, but it's not official yet. But I think we should be the number 2, and I think the numbers will go up in eggs for sure over the next. I expect it to double every 5 to 6 years, 7 years, at least till we get to a certain stage. At least till we cross 200 plus eggs. So yeah, but coming back to that, the feed prices situation was really. And that's why I was saying the government needs to take a strong look, because it's a phenomenal opportunity for us. We can export so much. I was just checking, our neighborhood Middle East is importing close to 1.4, 1.5 million tons of chicken. And then eggs and all that, you look at it, there's really good opportunity. But, our feed costs is right now, I would say 100% above what is in US and in Brazil. And in spite of that, if you really look at it, our consumer price is not double of in those markets. It's there, but this is only so much the industry can do when 80% of your cost is feed. How much where do you bring efficiencies from? Because even at the critical thing is you need to get even at minimum support price, we will be 40% higher than Brazil and US at minimum support price, MSP prices. But these prices are really crazy. So yeah, thank you.
Mr. Prashant Bhatkar, your views, please, on this.
Yeah, so it's a known thing. There has been a escalation which is unthinkable. About a month, 45 days, soya has gone up at least 2 times its cost. And now let us see with this notification how much it pulls off. The key issue, the way I see is this happened so sudden, and it was such a big shock that nobody was prepared. So definite, and the bad part, so to say, in the poultry industry is prices are not very closely linked to the cost part. So prices have their own trend with the seasonality and lean consumption periods and all that. And that's where the industry has got really big jolt. Somebody like us who does also processing, we end up having signed up deals with customers, longer term deals, for instance, QSRs, etc. And those can't be changed every month. So actually, the industry and processors, meat processors, have got into a completely pressure cooker situation. Demand is there, consumption is there, but this cost has completely spoiled the game. And I don't see this easing off very dramatically. Yes, it will definitely come down from 100p level, but the fundamentals, whatever I see in terms of demand supply of the RM, there is going to be a pressure, and it is going to take some time. And I think, as Mr. Chituri was talking about, we need to figure out how do we sustain ourselves for these demand levels, and at a price point which will work for us.
And I think just one point is we have to also recognize it's the consumer who's paying for all this. At some point, the consumer will pay for this, right? All these losses have to be recovered because the bank is not going to give us any shave, right? I mean, we have to pay it back. So the consumer will pay for it with a 350 rupees chicken soon. Per kg of chicken, they will pay for it soon. So people have to recognize that. Yeah. Sorry for butting in.
Yeah.
Mr. Chandrasekhar, quick word on this.
Yeah, sure. My very strong sense is that the feed price volatility is not going to go away anytime soon, very clearly, number one. Number two, even when you look at the forward positions, for example, I was talking to the Brazilian ambassador last week. I had a long meeting with him. They are expecting a second round of dry weather in the last quarter of 2021. This year, they had one last year, if you remember, 2020. They're expecting one. I think the climatic conditions around the world are becoming so much uncertain that I expect the feed price volatility is certainly going to continue. Therefore, what should the industry do? We all know the problem. So we need to work, we need to look at the solution. So what can the industry do? In my sense, large players, the top rung of this poultry industry, number one, they should, I strongly recommend, start establishing backward linkage. Why should you not produce your own feed? Why should you not do contract farming for corn, contract farming for soybean? And there are farmer producer companies available. So this is establishing backward linkage will substantially de-risk the companies from escalating a feed cost. That's number one. Second, I think the companies also should start hedging their price risk. But I talked to a number of industry people. They're all not either enthusiastic or not interested or quite wary of hedging their price risk or going to a commodity futures exchange. But you can't wish volatility away, and therefore you need to learn how to manage your price risk through a commodity. Third one, I think here is an opportunity for commodity exchanges talk to the industry and come up with delivery-based forward contracts. It is not a cash-settled futures contract. The exchanges can design a delivery-based forward contract, which I'm sure the industry will be very happy about. Then that would also reduce the volatility and uncertainty of supplies. So from a feed cost perspective, these would be my recommendations.
Yadav is there.
Yeah, I'm done, MRS.
Thank you very much, sir. Now it's time for the question and answers. So we have quite a few interesting questions that have come up. First is one from Mr. Manoj Chakrabarti. I would request Mr. Prashant Wadkar to address this. Mr. Manoj Chakrabarti of Belbesi Agro Farms, Assam. He wants to know whether it is mandatory to have your chicken antibiotic free for selling them as fresh or processed meat.
There is no legal restriction, but the best practice is there should not be any residue. And so withdrawal becomes very critical, and that's what all the processors typically follow.
Okay. Now, I would address this to Mr. Chituri. Dr. Bajaj is there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. Okay, sir. So maybe I think you will be the right person to answer this. We have this from Sheetal Sharad, VP of ICRA. The question is, do we envisage any regulatory changes on a global level in the medium term, particularly with respect to the WTO ruling, wherein US was looking at selling their poultry in India? How will this impact the domestic players? What is the view of our policymakers?
The policymakers have done their best. We fought the case in WTO. We all know. Of course, we tried our best, but we were taken aback. But still, even after that, we are at policy level controlling it. It's not that even after allowing them, there is nothing like flooding of the market, because we are getting it controlled. We are allowing as per following the WTO norms. We had to do it, but at the same time, it is under control also. It is a significant period. They have started sending to India, but there is nothing like flooding in the markets. So Indian government is very much particular, watchful of this fact. We have to follow WTO norms, but at the same time, we are also taking care of the domestic requirements.
Thank you. Now, I would put this question to Mr. Chituri. This is from Professor Raman Muthuswamy, Project Manager, UKRA GCRF One Health Poultry Hub, Tanuvas, Chennai. So he says, as of now, there is no support system for poultry industry by any government agencies. It is therefore essential to have some basic support system. Though it is a farm animal, but it has never been considered as farm animals and related leverages by government agencies, except in a few states. Mr. Chituri, would you want to respond to this?
Yeah, thanks. I think for that question, it's a good one. Every egg eaten more, every 50 grams chicken eaten more per capita in India, each one by itself creates 35,000 jobs. So and these are 90% going to be in rural areas, right? I mean, that's the other side of the business too. And then of course, then look at the good it does to our children's health, our women's health. I mean, we are one of the worst in terms of children's growth, stunted growth and all that. And this is a problem that is solved by an egg a day, or not even egg a day, 3 eggs a week, I think. So every alternate day, So I think government needs to look at this more. I mean, I will also say somewhere, I think Balram referred to that in the beginning, where saying,
Yes.
not having government being involved in it was a good, and I know that was the policy my father and Dr. B.V. Rao followed, maybe, which was good at that point, but maybe not today, because life moves in that circles, right? I mean, the truth is never the same. But today the problem is it's not so much that we're expecting government to give away money, throw money at us, but policies. Look at it. If I start a farm in US, I get a loan for 15 years, right? To pay off my loan for the farm, right? I get 3 years moratorium. we get 1 year moratorium in India and we have to pay it off in 6 years. So look at the return we have to generate to survive, right? I mean, that itself is a 60 paisa cost difference. And who is paying? The consumer is paying, of course, right? And it makes a businesses stress more, unthinking policies, right? My farm, the first farm my dad built is in 78. I mean, in hatcheries, not my first farm, but we're still operating it 78 to now. I mean, how many years is it? If you look at the life cycle of these things, why are you making us pay off our loans in 6 years? Why are you doing this? And so these are some of the things where I think government needs to be smarter about these policies and how we do that. And I'm not even then talking about, people in US and Europe getting interest at 2%, 3%, or maybe free also. I'm not getting to those issues. Those are not the things, right? But policies like this. And then again, as I said, we need soya now. Things are being gone berserk. What is the trigger point? At 45,000, 48,000 is where government, policymakers need to trigger that and see how can we help. Mr. Bajaj was mentioning about WTO and all that. But, we as an industry are fighting with both our hands and ties, everything, tied together, not even behind. Because what do? I can get corn today. Soya right now in US is 27,000, 28,000 rupees. So DOC. And, and now I'm supposed to compete with the same guy, please. And I'm not asking them to make it free, but, but at least be reactive faster, right? And allow us to import that reaction. The trigger point has to be faster. Why are we made to run pillar to post? And I know some of this is legacy issues and all that and how things have been seen, but I think we need to get better at these things. And I think that's the support we want from government. We are not asking for we're not asking them to throw subsidies at us, grants at us and all that. But these are the things which if government supports us. Yeah, I mean, if I can import corn and soya from Brazil, and then all of us can maybe import, take that 1.4 million tons that is coming into our neighborhood, we can probably go do that. How easy is it? Try going to government and saying, I want to import a container of corn from Brazil. I think some of us have applied. I think Balram has applied to GAAC some 10 years back. After reply bhi nahi aaya. Forget about them. So these are the things. These are what we are dealing with, and this is where I think we need policy support.
Thank you, sir. Now we have one question specifically addressed to, again, Dr. Bajaj from Mr. Shiv Shankar, Shanti Feeds, Coimbatore. He says, recent ocean freights have skyrocketed. Any possibility in future for transport assistance for exports? Also kindly requesting to elicit, to tell us about the MEIS benefits for chicken meat to incentivize exports. Dr. Bajaj.
Yeah, yes. You see, the container prices have increased, but this is not only limited to India, it is universal. Today only I was reading this, Australians are facing problems because of the export of meat. Then there are other countries. So this is universal phenomena world over. The container prices have increased. Yes, it has increased, and but we don't have any plan. Government doesn't have any plan for the subsidy as far as I know. They are trying to contain it in 2-3 ways. Of course, we are addressing it in a macro level by making availability of the containers. And also the government is in touch with the shipping ministry. They are in touch with them. But you see, this is an international phenomena. It is affecting. Regarding MEIS is out, it is not WTO compatible. So MEIS is out. It is a history now. There is no MEIS. Road tax scheme is likely to come. Very soon, the rates are likely to be announced. Anytime, we'll know what will be the road tax scheme. And that, is actually compensating the taxes and other which we pay and neutralize those taxes. So road tax scheme is on card. It is already on card. The rates will come in the due course time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bajaj. That was a good news. Now, this one I would, Mr. Balram Yadav is there.
Is there?
Yeah. Sir, this is specifically for you, sir. APIDA and poultry sector should recognize the poultry farms that produce birds, eggs, process meat and do in a way that people can understand the different quality standards of protection. This is by Ravi Tota. So he's saying consumers don't have a way of knowing the quality standards that are being produced. Today, we know a Unilever, Nestle, Dabur, Britannia food products will be following high quality. So how will that be known in the animal agri sector? So I would leave it to Dr. Yadav to respond.
So it is not that standards don't exist. The only thing is that they are not followed and implemented the way they should be. So I think FSSAI is now a body which is very much on the probably neck of everybody, and you'll be really surprised that FSSAI is even taken feed also under its control. So I think feed standards have been now set, particularly in cattle feed to start with. So my sense is definitely quality standards are there, and when you set up processing plants, etc., since most of their equipment and processes are imported, so automatically you produce certain quality, whether you like it or not. So that's point number one. Point number two, I am saying that I would say that, look, I am very thrilled because the more I come to know about MPDA, the more I love them, because their response, Suresh talked about triggers. So their response is for the global market, not the local market. So we have to compete with Ecuador, we have to compete with Vietnam. And that is what MPDA makes sure that the government responds to. I am telling you that if our shrimp was becoming non-competitive in the global market, the government have woken up much earlier than the domestic woes of the poultry market. That is what I am trying to say. The other thing I want to say is that at one time, I used to be very active from 2005 to 2013-14 myself, and Mr. Soundarajan visited Delhi so many times to press for certain things. That time we were asking for zoning. If you can do zoning for beef, why can't you do zoning for poultry? When the avian influenza was preventing us from exporting things, because you had problem of rinder pest and you had problem of foot and mouth disease, but you were still exporting because you certified it a disease-free zone. So I'm saying that our government has to make us competitive, and just like Suresh said, if you want us to export, you should allow us to import to be competitive. And that is the approach which will come once our problems move from Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Animal Husbandry to Ministry of Commerce, and which opens door for global competitiveness rather than local survival. So that is the thing. I am telling you that there will be such a big surge in the quality of everything as soon as we start thinking about global rather than local.
Sir, another question also addressed to you from Mr. Vijay Makhija. So he is asking, what steps poultry sector should consider for strategic PR so that consumers treat poultry as a preferred choice of protein?
So let me tell you, I think we all know these steps. And I must tell you that we all meet, as soon as the chicken prices drop, we all meet and brainstorm and make fancy plans and do not execute. You know what is the big problem with this sector is that by the time we start discussing the problem, it gets over. As soon as it reaches remunerative prices, all our plans are shelved. So I'm saying that this short-term thinking and lack of our inertia with the industry to take this up has been a very, very big problem, not just now, but for last 10 years I'm seeing. And I am telling you that I have said that in one of the conferences also, that we are ready to lose 15,000-20,000 crores a year to these rumors and viruses and trying to solve the problems we don't have, as Suresh said. But we are not ready to put in few hundred crores a year for next 5-10 years to improve PR, to improve the image of the industry, to show what we have. I'm telling you the kind of technology we are deploying, kind of things we are doing to produce poultry at globally competitive levels of cost and quality. I'm saying we are not ready to showcase that. We are not ready to come together to do that. So if you really ask me, the problem and solution lies with the industry. I'm saying that look at how the National Egg Coordination Committee roped in great PR and great advertising to popularize eggs in this country. And I'm telling you, egg is unstoppable in this country because everybody has realized it is the simplest, cheapest, and most secure and perfectly packed protein, isn't it? So my sense is that the industry has to come together, industry has to earmark funds, and it has to, they need not put their brains behind all this. They have to just put money. There are enough number of very competent people who can handle this for us on a sustained basis. Everybody, even small trainers, small chefs also, who are individuals, have companies who manage their social media and PR, etc., and they create brands of themselves. So I'm saying that today it is not important to go on TV on that 1 minute thing which costs us 50 lakh rupees for every minute. Social media is not that expensive. We just have to come together and do that in a sustained manner, which we have not been doing. So it is industry's problem and it is industry's solution also. Nobody is going to solve it for us. And I'm telling you that today you have imported 1.5 million tons of soya meal and you're rejoicing. I fully agree with Mr. Chandrasekhar that next year it may be corn. What will you do? Again, you start running and 3 months later, after losing 10,000 crores, we will say, okay, we can import corn. But we need to find sustainable solutions.
This question, I would put it across to Mr. Chandrasekhar. One is about the commitments of the industry towards climatic conditions, and that is by Sandhya Kumari wants to know whether the sector is committed towards climatic changes. And the other question from an anonymous attendee is how we can improve health of animal with changing climatic conditions. So, Mr. Chandrasekhar, if you can enlighten us.
Yes. Thank you, Amar. It's a very interesting question. The first one is what is the industry doing to
commitment towards.
What is the commitment of the industry? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure top leaders of the industry are fully aware and conscious of the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. And that's the first one. In fact, my own exercise has demonstrated that the poultry industry actually helps advance 8 to 10 of the 17 goals. But the industry has not spoken about it, has not communicated about its role of how this industry is actually helping advance 8 or 10 of the 17 SDGs. I think that communication is extremely important, and that communication, particularly amongst policymakers, is extremely critical. That's number one. Number two, when you compare globally, the animal husbandry, that's livestock industry, and the meat industry, okay, put it that way, the meat industry with the poultry industry, animal meat industry with the poultry industry, the greenhouse gas emissions of the animal meat industry is far higher than any emissions that the poultry industry would actually deliver, and therefore the poultry industry's contribution to emissions, in my view, is far less and in some way negligible. But whether it can be reduced further is something all of us have to sit down and think about. But I'm certain the industry is fully conscious of the fact that the industry needs to reduce its carbon footprint. Industry needs to help further advance the 8 or 10 goals of sustainable development of the United Nations. I'm sure, I believe, I'm convinced the industry is fully conscious of this and working towards it.
Mr. Chituri, I think you would want to have a word or two on this.
Yeah, so I'm quite involved in this MRS, and being the IEC chair, that's one of the pillars that we have taken on sustainability. And I don't know how many of you are aware of, there's a UN Food System Summit going on right now, addressing about this and about the sustainability. The thing is, the poultry, both chicken and eggs, are already the most sustainable. And I would say not just animal protein, but I think if you compare value to humans in terms of what brings to the table, I think we are at the bottom. I think we are at the bottom on emissions and all that. So that's pretty good. So it's already very good. And I would say on the egg industry, I know we have now taken on to get to net zero by 2050. And we said, although we are already very good, but we will not rest on it. We will get down to net zero. I know the chicken industry is also seriously looking at that once we have made our commitments, and we are now we've set up a team of panel of experts scientists to look at guide us in this journey over the next 30 years on how do we get there, how do we get to zero. And I think I know the dairy industry has also taken it on. And I think the chicken industry is also going to take it on soon, without doubt. But as I said, we are already very, very low, and we are comparable to peas in terms of our greenhouse emissions. So I think people need to know that the industry is already super efficient, and I don't think India is there actually making it one of the most efficient. It's because India is pretty efficient in this. We have reduced our resource consumption by 30%. About 60% in the last 30 years. Mr. Chandrasekharan, I'm not sure if you know. We have reduced our resource consumption by 70% in the last 30 years in our industry. And then we are going to make further gains. Of course, it's not going to be easy to make another 70% cut. It almost, we will have to defy laws of physics to do that. But I think we are getting there. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I think probably we are getting to the last set of questions because we're running short of time. And this is for Dr. Bajaj because there are specific questions. One is that what are the constraints of exporting chicken, meat and egg to European countries, especially where the standards are difficult to meet? And the other one is from, this is from Dumal Manikrao. And the other one is from one of our journalists asking whether it's true that the government has allowed import of 1.5 million tons of soy meat, and is that GM? Dr. Bajaj?
Has he left?
I think maybe we can answer that. Yes, we have just seen the letter from All India Poultry Breeders Association, of which I am the vice chair. We had applied to the government, and we just got the response back from the government that yes, they've allowed it. In fact, it's quite. I mean, we have to explore it more, but it's quite interesting letter. So, but they've allowed it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. May I? MRS?
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't go by the press release issued by the Poultry Breeders Association. We need to wait for the formal notification from the government. I'm not sure, at least until last night, I haven't seen any formal notification. I don't know if it has been issued today.
We just got the letter, Dr.
No, has a notification been issued? That is the question. Is there a formal
notification? That we are expecting now. I don't know. It says we probably don't need that, but that's what we are saying. We are also trying to, decipher what it means. But it fundamentally says can be imported under Chapter 23 of ITC. This is the letter from the government to us. Okay. HS code and soybean meal and all that. So they've given us that. So yeah.
Very good. Okay. Good.
Mr. Watkar, would you want to say this on this European meeting the European standards as, in exporting poultry meat? That'll be the last one. We're extremely sorry that we are unable to accommodate further questions.
On European standards, I think most of the countries do not allow Indian poultry to be imported. And that is something, so it's not about meeting standards. These imports are not allowed into these countries. Even GCC, only Bahrain and Oman are the two countries which allow. Other countries don't allow. And
Mr. Bajaj is back. I think Mr. Bajaj can take that question.
I'm sorry, there was some internet connection breakage. If I can have the question again.
Sir, one is about exporting to Europe. How can we meet the standards in exporting to Europe? That's one question. The other part is from a fellow journalist on asking whether the government has allowed import of 1.5 million tons of soy meat, which could be GMO.
No. GMO is question which is questionable. I
Okay.
don't think we allow GMO this, then we have to, open the floodgate for many things.
Okay.
So this is a questionable thing for GMO. But as far as Europe is concerned, we are already in talks with Europe. We are already, this is a market access issue, is one of the listed market access issues. We are in talks with them to allow us, and I think they have conducted once because of the pandemic. They couldn't come 2 years back. They had sent to do their veterinary analysis. They came. Of course, we're still in talks with them as far as the market access is concerned. We can export. I'm not saying we cannot export.
MRS,
Yes.
I want to put things in perspective if you allow me a minute.
Yeah.
There is a lot of disinformation going around about import of GM soy meal. That's number one. My view, as of at least last night, there has been no formal notification. But non-GM import are permissible. India imports about 300,000 tons of non-GM meal and about 400,000 tons of non-GM oil seed. That is permitted. There is no restriction at all. The specific question here is about GM soy meal import, and I haven't seen any notification as of now because it is for the GEAC to clear the proposal, and I don't think they have met yet. That's how I thought I should put things in perspective.
So, thank you all very much. It has been a very enlightening session with each one of you. Mr. Balram Yadav had really some very enlightening inputs on the whole issue, putting up and the growth, phenomenal growth is something that that's really making us sit up and notice. And there is enough adequate potential for the sector to really go forward and develop. I think poultry sector is in for a good times, but provided that we are going to listen to all that what all our panelists said, particularly our special invitee Dr. Yadav and also Dr. Bajaj, and a special thanks to each one of you. We wholeheartedly thank each and every one of you for attending this session, for taking out your precious time and helping us in this regard. Thank you all very much. See you soon with another.
Thank you.